Shalom, everyone. We'll wait a couple of minutes until everyone is in. Okay. Shalom, everybody. My name is Ilona Ben Moshe. I'm a senior lecturer at the Skirball Department of Hebrew and Judaic Studies at NYU. I welcome you once again on behalf of my department, the Taub Center for Israel Studies at NYU, and the Office of Cultural Affairs at the Consulate General of Israel. Before we begin, I would like to thank Daniel Zeus, Director of Film and Media North America, the Office of Cultural Affairs at the Consulate General of Israel, for his support in setting up the series. Thank you, Kirsten Howe, Special Projects Administrator at the Skirball Department of Hebrew and Judaic Studies, for your assistance in producing this event. I would also like to acknowledge the enthusiasm and support of my colleagues, Professor Alex Jason, Chair of Hebrew and Judaic Studies Department, Professor Rosalie Kamelhar, Director of the Hebrew Program, Professor Benny Hari, Director of NYU Tel Aviv, and Professor Ron Zweig, Director of the Taub Center for Israel Studies. It is a great pleasure to host an Israeli documentary film series that brings award-winning and critically acclaimed documentaries made by Israeli directors in recent years. As I mentioned last time, what appeals most to me are documentaries about people in their authentic, unmade, exposed state, whose personal stories are embedded in a broader public context. Today's film is very much a case in point. Let me introduce our Israeli guests. First, Mr. Shaked Goren, the director of today's film. Shaked is an Israeli director and video editor based in Tel Aviv. His documentary, My War Hero Uncle Elifelet, from 2018, won the Van Leer Prize for Best Director at the Jerusalem Film Festival that year, Best Documentary Award at the Toronto Jewish Film Festival 2019, and Best Debut Documentary given by the Israeli Documentary Filmmakers Forum. Some of the films Shaked edited were Birthright, Made in Auschwitz, and Armed. Since 2019, he teaches documentary filmmaking at Minshar for Art College, where he earned his degree in film. Shalom, Shaked.
Hi.
Shalom. For today's talk, we are pleased to have as moderator Shaked's former film professor at Minshar, Dr. Laliv Melamed. Laliv is a film and media scholar and a film curator. She earned her master's and PhD here at the Department of Film Studies at NYU, and is currently a research fellow at Goethe-Universität in Frankfurt. She specializes in nonfiction and experimental media, and her research focuses on emerging media and state violence in Israel-Palestine. In her curatorial work, she has collaborated with Oberhausen Short Film Festival, Artport, and Left Bank Cinema in Tel Aviv, and she's a senior programmer for Doc Aviv Film Festival. Hi, Laliv.
Hello.
Okay, so I leave the stage for you, but before I do, I want to mention to the audience that you should feel free to type your questions under the Q&A button. And you can start even now. If you have a question or a comment, please go ahead and type it for us. Thank you.
Okay, hello everyone. Just to say, I already see that we have a question, and don't worry, we'll integrate our questions into the conversation. Shaked and I discussed about it beforehand, and we thought that, we really want to hear people's thought and questions about the film, so we'll try to engage it in the conversation between us. And the case today is actually, the event today is actually a very special one for both Shaked and me, because as Ilona mentioned, we actually, I was Shaked's teacher a while ago, and this meeting between us kind of played an important role for the film that you just watched. So, Shaked was, had quite a few Q&A about the film since it was released, and I did quite a few Q&A with filmmakers about their work. But for today, I think that both of us have a very special relationship to this film, and it's something that we've been talking about even before it existed. And in fact, when we were when we were asking ourselves where to begin today, we were like, oh, let's begin from the beginning, which was around 2013, Shaked, when you had to write a seminar for one of my classes, and you found yourself sitting in the archive, going over this kind of collection of family video memorials, and trying to dissect the relationship between Israeli family memorials and queerness. And maybe, I don't know, maybe we need to start there. What led you to this project, into this work? What questions emerged from this little research that you did, and how did it all kind of eventually led you toward this film, to Elifelet?
Thank you, Laliv, and thank you everyone for watching the film and being here with us today. So yeah, we can start by talking about the fact that you were one of my favorite teachers in Mishar. Don't worry, I won't embarrass you too much. And I really did, I did a work for you about the representation of gay soldiers in memorial films. And that was super interesting for me to find out. I was trying to understand, what do we see when we see those memorial films usually being made by the families, and what we usually see in those films, again, is those families talk about their loved ones. And I found it super interesting. I was trying to understand why all of the soldiers that are, mentioned in those films, all of them are heterosexual, I haven't seen any, in all of the research that I've made, I haven't seen any, gay soldiers being mentioned in those films. I haven't seen any, family member talking about, someone gay, about that soldier, that fallen soldier being gay. And that was interesting to me because obviously gay soldiers have died, during the time that, and yeah, so that was something that, I knew it before, even before I started, investigating that. But I was truly surprised to find that, no, no queer or no gay, clue at all.
It's interesting because I remember one of our first conversations about it, and I told you, because maybe I should mention that I wrote my dissertation, which is about to be published as a book about Israeli family memorials, and this is what got us into this conversation. And what I told you back then is that I feel like a memory, or a memory of a dead soldier is a story that was already written before even the person was died. So it's a very standardized and very normative convention within Israeli society because of the status of the military there. So any transgressions are very rare and not necessarily welcome. And I mean, also in 2013, you were working on your final project, which was a short fiction film about a reserve soldier who is on his way home to attend the national memorial ceremony because his family is what is called in Israel, they are a member of the family of bereavement. And what I really liked about that film is that, you know, the soldier find it very hard to make it back home to his family. There's like things that delay him, and constantly throughout the film, we hear his mother on the phone, kind of like asking him, when is he coming back? And that's another thing that kind of like comes up from Elifelet, the idea that memory in Israel is something very binding for the family. It organizes familial relations. And then you come and do Elifelet and you disturb these binding conventions for better and for worse. And I'm interested in hearing, I know it's very sensitive, but I'm interested in hearing a little bit about the family dynamic around you deciding to take upon yourself this project. And this is even before you learned that Ami didn't die in war, but committed suicide.
So yeah, I started, you mean, are we still talking about the stuff that I did in Minshar, or already about the film? You mean like...
I mean, I think that everything you did in Minshar was in a way a preparation for this film. So it's, I mean...
It was different because it's like I was this young student who was like experimenting, you know. My family wasn't really involved of the stuff that I was, you know, into doing my years in Minshar, in film school, you know. So it was I mean, I told them about it, and they were, especially my mom, I think she didn't really understand why I find it so fascinating, you know. And even after I came out as gay, you know, she didn't really understand why I'm interested in those subjects. And as you said, it's really hard. I mean, even before I knew that Ami, my uncle, killed himself and didn't die in war like I thought, or like the whole family thought, I had this fascination of, you know, being part of this family you mentioned, like the family of bereavement, you know. And that family, as you said, it's really hard. I mean, the Memorial Day in Israel has this one narrative, and it's really, really hard to find a crack and tell a different story. It's really hard to tell a story about someone, again, who is queer or different, or, you know, it's like the same prototype over and over again you know, we hear about a war hero. Usually he's a man, usually he's heterosexual. And for me, it was interesting, again, to try and think of myself in that scenario, you know. I was also like a combat soldier in the Israeli army. And when I started film school, I started, you know, asking questions about my place in that family, you know. What would have happened if I were to die in war, you know? What would everyone say about me? So that was something that I always found interesting. And when I started working on the film, on my war hero uncle, on Elifelet, again, my family didn't really, they didn't thought that something would come out of it, you know. It was this, again, this crazy student who's trying to, you know, who's interested some, you know, they had no idea why I was so interested in my uncle, who I didn't even knew. And yeah, but then I found out that he killed himself, and that, you know, sent me to that journey of making the film.
I have a lot to say about this discovery, which, you know, shared with me when it happened, and I keep thinking about it when I'm watching the film. But even before that, I mean, there are two things that I remember you talking about when you started working on the film. One is the letters, which kind of like convey a character who's maybe different, maybe sensitive, maybe having trouble finding his place within this kind of like conventionalized masculinity, or within this kind of like, national hero prototype. So that was one thing. And the second thing is a song who then gave the film its name. The song is called Elifelet by Nathan Alterman. We were actually debating whether or not Ilona suggested maybe we can read the English translation, but we weren't sure because in the English version, we don't even hear the song, and it's kind of like secondary to the main title. But it is a song about someone who, in a way, is a misfit, and then being redeemed by sacrificing himself in the military. So I don't know if you can maybe tell us a little bit more about what did it feel to you to read these letters? What did you recognize when you read this letter? Why were they something that draw you into wanting to work, like to make this film about your uncle, wanting to explore more about his character and what happened to him?
So my obsession or my fetish to my uncle, it began a lot, as I mentioned, a lot before I found out that he killed himself. He was this uncle that died in war that I didn't even knew. And the only thing I had from him was those letters that I read in the film. There's a lot more, and I read some of it in the film. And I remember, reading them at a very young age. I don't know, like 12 or 13, and then always coming back to those letters, because in my family that was very heteronormative, that was very, my grandfather was like this officer in the Israeli army, as you can see in the film. And to be different in this family was really hard, as I suppose in every family, but in my family it was hard because of that, and even before I came out as gay in my family, I had those letters as a proof that I had someone different in my family before me, that I had like a different version of a man, a different version of masculinity, a different version of a person that I didn't see as even as a kid around me. So that was very powerful for me. It was like a misfit Bible. And the fact that he was, someone from my family, and we shared, genes in a way or whatever, that was again, even as a young boy, it was really special for me. So that obsession for his text and his letters, it was a long time before I even started working on the film. And when I was in film school, I even done a few documentaries about his letters, again, before I knew that he killed himself. So that was like someone in my family that I adored or looked up to, I know it sounds super weird, but that was it. Yeah.
Quite a few people asked us in the chat whether or not you think Ami was gay. So I want to reiterate this question, and I want to ask you, on top of it, I want to add another question, because I know that this is something you've been thinking about, and it was present in one earlier version of the film. So my second question, on top of whether or not you thought that Ami was gay, is why eventually you decided to leave this question outside the film?
So yeah, obviously, as I said, I saw myself in him in a way. My misfit was being gay, and his misfit was, being him. It doesn't have to be related to his sexual preferences, you know. So obviously I thought that he might have been gay, and then that's something that I thought of, you know, during the years. But making the film, I understood that I can't really answer that question. You know, I don't really have, I can't know for sure if he was gay or not. I don't, I mean, I didn't have any evidence that he was gay or not. And it doesn't really matter. And as you said, there was a previous version of the film where Tria, his so-called girlfriend from LA, she tells me that she thinks that he was gay, and that was like that was a part of the film. That used to be a part of the film, but I decided that it's not the thing that I want to talk about. I mean, again, I have no idea if he was gay. I have no way of proving it, and it doesn't really matter, you know. That what matters to me that he was different and he struggled, you know, to be in the environment that he was in. He struggled to survive in so many ways, and he was different. He might have been gay, but I came to realize that it's not the issue that I want to, you know, discuss, or I don't want to highlight that. Obviously, when everyone watches the film, I mean, I hear questions about it, so it's not like it's not that it's not in the film, but it's not something that I wanted to highlight.
I mean, well, I told you this before, that I think in this conversation, maybe unlike others, I not only have questions to ask you, but also some thesis maybe to propose. And this is something you heard from me before, but I mean, also telling us, oh, maybe Ami was gay is yet another narrative that's, it's yet another form of memory, right? That kind of like put things in the place where sometimes things are not in their place. And I think that, you know, your film raises a lot of questions about secrets, and different kind of secrets, you know, things that we don't know, and it's okay that we don't know them, and maybe they need to be left unknown, because in their unknownness they're true to their memory. And things that we and secrets in the sense of things that we try to hide because we try to cover for something. And I'll go back to the idea of secrets. I mean, we've talked a lot. We talked about it a little bit before this screening. But once again, you know, I already said the memory is like in a way in Israel, in the context of military memory, a memory is a story already written. So also to kind of like, you know, say, oh, I mean, maybe the story here that he was gay. I mean, once again, it's offering yet another already written story. I also want to ask you a question that has to do with some of the stylistic decisions you made, which I think are so important. And this is once again about the letters. That, I mean, we already said how, you know, they were so important for you. They were something that in a way opened up this you know, this journey that you take upon yourself. When we see them in the film, you decide to show us archival footage that are very not specific. So in a way, the letters are the most intimate voice that we can have of Ami in the film, but what we see is the general abstract. We see figures. And I wanted to ask you about this decision.
Yeah, so actually, initially when I started like working on the film, I had this dream of doing this hybrid film, you know, during this every time that I read Ami's letters, we're gonna see this fiction part, you know, and I really wanted to do it, and I had these crazy ideas, and you know, with complicated camera operations, and I wanted to do like bits of musicals. I have these crazy ideas, and I and I understood that it's like it's a lot of money, and I have no idea how and if I'm gonna do those things. And when we started editing, me and my editor Daniel, we said, okay, let's put like archive materials for now and see how it feels, and later on we'll decide if we want like to reshoot those stuff and do like really something else. And then we saw that those archives work, and we tried to make them, try and focus them and make them trying to understand what we need to see in each and every letter. And we divided those letters into chapters, trying to think, even before we did all the archival research, trying to think, what do we want to see when we hear this letter? And some of the letters, I think, are more from the perspective of Ami, so-called, of how he saw the world, the army, living in the kibbutz. And some of it, you can almost see him. We were looking for like a redhead soldier, because he was also like a redhead guy. And you can see like a redhead soldier in some of the footage. And we wanted to give it, the sense of the audience watching him inside that environment. And yeah, some of the I mean, we try to again define each and every letter, and try to think what's, what would fit over there.
I mean, I want to move to think a little. I mean, I already said, the memory kind of like organizes the person, right? I mean, I think that the military memory in a way overwrite what Ami was, and the truth that he was in a way, I mean, in his misfittedness, he was a bit of a mystery. But then there is also the question about your family and how it, the Israeli military memory also organizes the family itself and the relationship. And a lot of people in the Q&A section here are asking what your grandmother knew or didn't know or doesn't want to know. And there are also questions about, how you set this, how you set the interviews with her and the shooting. Maybe let's start with this question, because for me, that was, I think the most moving aspect in the film is actually the relationship between the two of you, which are at their best when you don't say much, actually. So in a way, not talking, I think are the most emotional and moving and loving moments in your film. So maybe let's talk a little bit about how you set this the kind of like the setting with your grandmother, how you kind of like pitch the film to her, in what way she kind of like she relates to this project, and then maybe we can talk more specifically about what maybe she knows or doesn't know or doesn't want to know.
Yeah, so I'll start by saying that she actually passed away a few months ago. I haven't told you that.
Yeah. Sorry.
She died months ago. Yeah. So, but the question about how I did it with her is interesting, because my grandmother was someone who I always filmed, even before I started working on the film. She was. Every film student knows that, when you start working on like a personal project, you film someone from your family, and my grandmother was like my go-to place when I wanted to do something with my family. So she was always like this character that I found fascinating. Again, even regardless of all the story with Ami. So I have a lot of like short films with her since forever. Again, I used to come to her with a camera and just put it there and film our conversations about nothing, just I have hours on hours of footage of us watching cartoons together. So it wasn't like strange for her that I came with a camera, and started and just put it there and started asking questions and talking to her, that wasn't something unusual for her. And when I started working on the film, as you can see on the film, I asked her about Ami. I asked her about him when I started, realizing that there is a story here, and there's something that I'm not sure of. I started asking questions, And as you can see on the film, she doesn't really wants to talk about it, on the other hand, she does really wants to talk to talk with me, because we have this relationship, this special relationship between us. She enjoyed our time together, and I think she enjoyed even me asking her questions that she didn't want to answer, so that was like our quality time together. um, and she didn't, I mean, I will jump to the end and say that she didn't saw the whole film. So she obviously knew that there was a film. I showed her like bits and pieces from the editing, from the editing room. I showed her some scenes, and then when I finished the film, I asked her if she wants to watch it, and she said no. And I asked her why, and she told me that she doesn't want to deal with that. And by saying that, I meant, I understood what she meant about, dealing with all like Ami's suicide and everything. And the other question that I often being asked after screenings is, what does she really knows, Because in the film, it's like you don't really understand, you don't necessarily understand that she knows about Ami's suicide. So I can tell you that she knows, but I have no idea exactly what she knows. I mean, I know for a fact that she was that my grandfather was trying to hide that fact from her back then, and I know for a fact that she knows. I mean, that she found out during those years. But I didn't. Again, she didn't want to talk about exactly how she knows, and it's like. It's like you see on the film, but I have other interviews with her that we're talking about this, and you can understand that she knows what I'm talking about, and I'm telling her I know how Ami died, and she tells me, okay, but I don't want to talk about it. So both of us knows what we're talking about, but the word suicide is not mentioned. Like the word gay is not mentioned for a long time until I talk about it.
And maybe this is also something that she knows and knows not to know.
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, for me, well, first of all, I just want to, I mean, as a kind of like a side comment, the film is, I mean, it is about this person who died too young, but also about her aging. There is like a beautiful sentence where the two of you are talking. I mean, it's this one time when you sit her down and you say, 20 minutes, I just want to interview you about what you know. And then she said something a bit abstract. And then she said, I wish I could talk to you as the way I am, but I am no longer myself. And you say, you are still you. And then she said, I am no longer you. Which is a beautiful moment. And for me, I was like, it doesn't matter what you know, but she knows what you are doing. And in a way, for me, the two of you were partners in producing this kind of like anti-memorial. Anti-memorial in the sense that you were both partners in making something different. And in a way, kind of like trying to think what it means not to know, or to submit yourself to not to know, but also what does it mean to refuse. And the refusal is also, I think, also in a way what Ami is doing, right, by taking his own life, if he did. So, I mean, for me, there is this beautiful partnership that the two of you are forming that in a way is also gesturing towards Ami, trying to resurrect his memory, not the story that was written about him. So for me, that's like, I mean, this is why I'm saying, there is something so beautiful in the conversation about you, and it's so beautiful actually when nothing is said. And which once again bring me back to my secret thesis. Your family had this secret, right? That people either didn't know, or, as I said, know not to know. And then there is throughout the entire film, it's kind of like building up to the moment in which you're going to expose the secret. And exposing the secret should bring us all to relief. And then there is this beautiful, beautiful ending scene where you sit her down and he said, I want to tell you something, meaning I want to tell you a secret. I want to bring this thing to a relief. And then you tell her you're gay. So for me, in a way, if the suicide buried the misfits, right, and buried it as a war hero, you try to kind of like uncover the misfit and say, accept me and accept me as I am, even if you don't think it is natural. And there is a lot of acceptance, although she says like difficult things. Can you tell us a little bit more about this very ending scene? I know that it was much longer than what we see. I don't know, even if you can, like, we can see that you're very, very nervous before. I love how it starts and ends with frozen pizza. Or the desire for a frozen pizza. So if you can, I don't know, maybe let us sit with the two of you in the living room that day and kind of like tell us how you worked on this final scene.
Yeah, so actually that was the only scene that I shot in two cameras. Usually I had only one, and for that scene I brought two. And when I say that scene, I had no idea when I'm gonna really shoot it, because I came with two cameras for like a month and a half until I really did it, So I just came with my two cameras and trying to understand if now is the time, if today is the day to talk about it, trying to understand what I feel, what she feels, if it's like the right moment to do it. Until the right moment came. I can't explain what is the right moment, but I felt it to be the right moment. And yeah, I was super scared about it. I had no idea how she's going to react, really. If she's going to get like a heart attack or throw something at me, or really, I had no idea how she's going to react. So that was really a scary moment for me. And yeah, as you said, it was like super long. It was like 4 hours conversation. It was cut to, I don't know, 7 minutes or something like that, even less. And it was mind-blowing for me, because until the moment I did it, I didn't think I would have like the strength to really do it. You know what I mean? My grandmother, she seems like this old person, but I was really scared, about her reaction. And in general, when she was younger, she was really scary. She's super cute and she's super lovable, but she can also be really scary. And she had a huge impact on me, and she's a huge part of my life. And that thing, me telling her that I'm gay, I knew that it's gonna make an impact on her. So I was really scared. But as you can see on the film, she can be rough. She says some hard stuff, but she also, she really loves me, and that's the most important thing. And you can see that she finally accepts me. And in her way, she wants me to bring my boyfriend, which I didn't have at the time. But since then, I came with my boyfriend, which would also, I should have maybe shot that moment as well. That was super funny, and she was super nice. But yeah, that was a really special moment. Again, because I had no idea. As a documentarist, you always have no idea what's going to happen, but you do. You have some idea, and that was a moment in the film when I really had no idea. I had no idea how she's going to react. I had no idea if if that's really going to be a part of the film. I had no idea that it's going to be like the closing sequence of the film. I had thoughts about it, but I didn't really knew.
I want to, I mean, you know, in the context of you know, this conversation with your grandmother, I want to recite some of the questions we're getting in the chat, and those of you who are asking questions, thank you so much for this, and also all of your comments. I'm sure that Shaked will have time to read them afterward, and I really hope that we're able to kind of like respond and kind of like answer the questions that that you ask. There is a question: do you think that your grandmother, in a way, knew that you're gay, and this is why she kept asking you about a girlfriend, or even she knew that you're gay and she was worried about you because of Ami, and this is why she kept asking you about girlfriends? In a way, kind of like, you know, maybe implying be normal, but normal, of course, quote unquote.
Yeah.
And also. There is also a question about what would you, I mean, I don't know, what would you think that Ami or your grandfather would feel about the film, which, I mean, both of them are no longer with us for a while. So.
Yeah. So regarding my grandmother, I don't think she had Ami on her mind, you know, when she was referring to me or asking questions about me or trying to understand if I have a girlfriend. I think I don't know if she knew that I was gay, but she knew that that there's something here that she's not hearing, that she doesn't know. And that's why she kept asking me about a girlfriend. I don't think she wanted me to come out. I don't think she wanted me to, you know, to seal that, you know, to close that heterosexual way of life for me and for her. But she knew that there was something that I'm not telling her in a way. And yeah, I guess that's why she kept on asking me that. And about my grandfather and about Ami, I don't think I could have made the film if my grandfather was alive. I mean, still alive. He died in 2010, and I don't think that I could have, you know, made the film if he was still here. For many reasons, I don't think that could have happened. And about Ami, I think, I mean, I believe he would have been proud of me. At least I want to think that. You know, I see the similarity between me and him, and I talk about it in the film, and that's part of the narrative of the film. I mean, if he was alive today, he might not think that. Again, you talked about it a little bit about, you know, it might not have been the narrative that he was choose to, you know, to tell. And he was, you know, he was like a 16, 17-year-old kid, you know, so it's also interesting to try and think what kind of man he would have become. So yeah, so obviously I think about it once in a while, but I have no good answer to that.
I want to go back also to a question from the questions we received that I liked a lot about the way you shot different spaces, because you are, I mean, I think that the heart of the film is at your grandmother apartment, which is a place you know very well, and as you said, I mean, it was very intimate. You came there, I think, in most cases, just you and the cameras, and she was already kind of like accustomed to this. But then we have all these different spaces, and you know. Someone was asking about, especially the scene in Tria's house in LA, where you shot her daughter playing the piano, and it's a beautiful question here about how you shoot it, because you know it's all these close-ups about her hands and her legs, and her you know, playing the piano, and only then you cut to what we call in film parlance establishing shot, where we see the entire setting, and then we see Tria, and then kind of like we start understanding you know, how this scene is connected to the narrative. So if you can talk a little bit about these decisions of the
Yeah,
film?
so I won't take any credit for my photographer, my cameraman, and Nadav, he also went with me to Minshal. Um, so he was my amazing cameraman, and he shot, you know, all of the film besides my grandmother. All of the scenes in my grandmother's house, it was only me, just establishing the tripod, the camera, and moving it around a little bit. But it was just, me setting the camera towards us. And Nadav actually shot this shot or this scene in LA, in Chia's house. And it was all him. It's something that he felt at that moment. I can talk about decisions that we made together, or decision that, it was important for me when we went to LA, to try and distinguish, her life now, Tria's life, as opposed to the life that she had with Ami in Israel. The life in the socialism in the kibbutz, and whatever it means, to be Israel in the 60s, the way that, again, that they were living in the kibbutz, as opposed to her life in LA as a real estate agent, nowadays. So we shot in like this huge. Actually, it's not her house; it's her daughter's house, and the one who's playing the piano, it's her granddaughter. So I wanted to see like the difference between the kibbutz and her house, or her life now in LA. That was interesting to me. Um, as a chance to talk about, I don't know, the change that has happened from the 60s to now, and differences between, in a nutshell. Yeah, it's not between LA and Israel, and yeah.
I also like this. I like the question a lot, and because I like this sequence because, we meet these people who are at their 50s or 60s, I think 60s,
The end of the
all your interviewees, and they talk about their memories from being 18, and there is such a contrast in a way. It's all about youth, and then all of these people. For them, it's so far away from them, and especially when it comes to Tria. I noticed that every time she's mentioned, of course, she's the girlfriend, but also, people always refer to her beauty, her youthfulness in a way. So once again, this kind of like promise, as something that organizes memory and organizes death, maybe even tame it. So for me, there was something very beautiful that all of a sudden we have this sequence of shots of a young girl, and then this this now older woman who is like an older version of the young girl, once again completely scrambles what we think we know of your uncle.
Yeah.
You agree?
No, you said it so beautifully. I have nothing to add.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about. Of course, our entire conversation is about what does it mean to die as a war hero in Israel, or to be remembered as a war hero, because your uncle didn't die as a war hero, but he was remembered as a war hero. And I want to refer to an earlier sequence, which is the sequence that actually, where we see the opening title of the film, and the sequence in the military cemetery, and we see the crowds of people who are just like, following the rule, and then we see you alone in front of the grave. And can you tell us a little bit about this scene, and also about what are your relations to this kind of like monumental, even primal scene of Israeli memory, like the military cemetery?
Yeah. So it was really hard, as someone who grew up in this family, in this Israel Memorial Day family, in this bereaved family that has these rules of how to how to behave and what to think and what to and again about the prototypes of those soldiers that I initially as a kid I was really proud to to be a part of this family, to be a part of this again this big family that what's your role in it, to come each and every year to Ami's grave and to be a part of it's to be part of something big, and you feel important, when my parents came to take me from school, I wasn't part of everyone in school if they're not a part of, if they haven't lost personally someone. So there's like this ceremony at school, and I was taken to Haifa, to the military cemetery, to the more important ceremony. So growing up as a kid, I was again proud to be a part of this family, but growing up and coming out and realizing that I don't really want to be a part of it, or I'm not really a part of it. It doesn't matter if I want to or not, because the narrative is different than my narrative. So understanding that was, it was a big thing for me to understand that. And then when I found out about Ami, that he actually killed himself and he wasn't a war hero, that was devastating. It's like you told yourself a completely different story all those years. And it was more devastating for my family, for my mother. It's for me, it's like someone I didn't knew. For her, it's like it's more her history than mine. So it's really, it's a weird feeling, it's weird to explain it, you're asking yourself, am I not part of this family anymore now that I found out that my uncle actually killed himself? Am I not allowed in those ceremonies? And so you ask yourself those questions, trying to understand your new place in this memorial scene. So it was really weird to rewrite history in that sense, and trying to understand our new position as a family, and my new position as someone who told himself all those years about that myth of his family. So that was crazy. Yeah.
I told you before that I felt like I don't know about your family, but I felt from your film, I felt that for you and for your grandmother, it's a huge relief to kind of like actually break away from the heavy weight of military memory. People have been asking us about the song, and maybe I don't know. Do you want to say in a few words what the song Elifelet is about, and why? Because I think it really holds the key to kind of like understand the relationship between being other, being misfit, being queer, and kind of like the norms around heroic death in Israel.
Yeah, so we were talking about this Memorial Day settings, so there's memorial films and there's memorial music. And when talking about those, like about songs or music that we usually hear on Memorial's Day, it's like it's the same songs each and every year. And usually, like, I really love those songs, it's like this nostalgic, sometimes war songs. But those songs usually, there are a lot of them, but usually again they talk the same, they speak the same narrative. All the songs usually they talk about the war hero soldier who has a wife that's waiting for him at home. Again, this heterosexual soldier this great hero that died in war. It's the same narrative over and over again. And Elifelet is also like a Memorial Day song that we hear on the radio in Memorial Day, but it's a different song. It's not a song about this, again, this war hero, heterosexual soldier. It's a song about a misfit, about someone who accidentally dies. He didn't die as a war hero, and he was strange. He was different. He was he was someone else. The song mentioning like the neighbors talking about him, trying to understand what's wrong with him. He's like this weird kid, who happened to be, to grow up and be a soldier. And then even as a soldier, he died he didn't die as a war hero. He died, it's like his death is a mistake in a way. So again, this song is a very special song to me, and I really like it, again, because he tells the story of the film and the story of Ami in a way, of someone who is different in this memorial settings that is very used to one narrative and one story, and especially one way to die. There's only one way to die.
It's interesting because we get a lot of questions here about, first of all, about how is it today with the military, and also questions about, for instance, there was a question, what does it mean that he was part of a Gerin? So this small group of young young men and women also that were sent to the young kibbutzim, and part of their military service was, of course, to defend the nation, but also to build it. So, I mean, we're just to kind of like to make things clear for our listeners. I mean, it is the kind of like the core of Israeli nation building project of the 60s. Which is a decade in which Israel is still struggling to define itself and protect its sovereignty. Of course, the military we're talking about today is very different, but as part of the conversations we had following your seminar, Shaked, I mean, we were talking about, for instance, what kind of memorials we have, not only for people that might have been gay, but also, for instance, for people who indeed died during their military service, but also died as a result of an accident, died of a disease or different kind of causes that are not necessarily has to do with, they didn't necessarily die in combat. And it was interesting because I think like around the time that you were working on your film, there was this, in a way, underground investigative journalist who published a study that the percentage of soldiers who commit suicide is actually much higher than we know. And most of these suicides are then communicated to the family as if the soldiers died in action. There is, of course, a much bigger political drama here. And I wanted, I mean, kind of like building up on questions we were asked in the Q&A, were you engaged in any kind of conversations with the military or with other institutions that are part of the, I would call them memory institutions in Israel about this kind of like, hierarchy of death within the Israeli military?
Actually, not really. I mean, I was in contact with the army just regarding Ami and his death, trying to get the report of his death and all that. And actually, they were very kind, trying to help me with that, with my investigation about my uncle. And I tried to dig in deeper about, statistics, and when did they actually try to, I mean, because there's like the fact that, I mean, the movie starts with this bureaucratic thing of me trying to help my grandmother and talk to the Ministry of Defense in order to get an assistant for her, because as a bereaved family, that's also something that not everyone might know. As a bereaved family, you have like you're entitled to get. You have some privileges that you can get. You can get help with, finance or whatever. There's help that you can get from the army, and then actually that was the reason that led me to understand that the army didn't die in war and actually killed himself. But the thing is, I was trying to understand, why does my grandmother is not, why doesn't she get all the privileges that any other family gets? Because nowadays it doesn't matter if a soldier dies in combat or in accident or if he kills himself. It's like death is equal in that sense. Everyone gets the same privileges. And back then it wasn't like that, and that's why our family didn't get everything that we should have got, in terms of help from the military. So I was told from the army that around the 1988, they only started to equalize that. So it was only at the end of the 80s. But again, I was trying to understand what is like the criteria and exactly when and why they decided that, and I didn't get specific answers. It was all very general, and I've learned to find that it's each and every case is different. It took a long time to have like rules and regulations about that. So it was like it depended on the soldier and the soldier's family, and so it was hard to get like specific answers from them, and it's really complicated because they don't really want to talk about it.
It's we got a few questions. I mean, that it is confusing. Someone asked, I think the two people asked about whether or not he died in the 6 days war, and it doesn't right with the dates, because he died in February and the 6 days war started in June. But I mean, once again, I mentioned before that I have like a theme about like a thesis about how this film is all about secrets. I mean, the story that is told to begin with, and this is just to clarify to our audience, is that Ami died in a secret activity. He crossed Israeli sovereign borders in order to defend it. It was a clandestine activity, a secret activity, and he died. So death itself is rendered a secret in a way.
Yeah.
I mean,
even if we don't talk about that, even if the family actually did. We thought that he died in the 6 days war, and it's crazy to think about it because the dates really don't add up. But as a family, we thought, we didn't ask questions. We thought, okay, so he died before or after, and the army, when they want to catalyze, each and every soldier, so they put him over there, and you don't really if that's the story you hear from his parents, and that's what, like, the story that you hear each and every year, you don't really ask questions about it. And it's not I know that it sounds weird, but growing up to that reality, you don't really ask questions about it, even if the dates don't add up. And
I mean, I think that part of the reason why we don't ask questions about it, because it's a mix of the status of the military, the normative status of it, and the kind of like also the myth or the ethos of the military in Israeli society, but also the fact that death is extremely painful. So sometimes we tend not to ask questions.
Absolutely, yeah. No one, even in the family, no one wanted to talk about him. So obviously we didn't ask questions.
It's I mean, we're approaching the end. Actually, we're already at the end of our conversation, and I'm not sure that I mean, I'm not sure how to end it, but I do want to. I mean, I do want to end with maybe the two of us thinking about, you know, what are the stakes, in, like more generally, for Israeli society, because this is, you know, what we were talking about in the you know last few minutes. And I mean, this is something I told you when we talked about also my work on commemoration. I think that, you know, in its liability to this, you know, to this kind of like memory narrative, I think the Israeli family is in a way reaffirming or completely collaborating with the centrality of militarism in Israel. And I think people from my generation, your generation, I guess we can say we're the same generation, are maybe, you know, I mean, trying to push this to kind of like think about other narratives outside these kind of like, you know, this military ethos are available for our future, which, I mean, and you know, this is something you and I talked about it a little bit, and you told me a story a little bit about the kind of like the critical reception of the film in Israel, and I think maybe maybe you can talk a little bit about it. So, I mean, not necessarily the military, but actually how critique responded to the film, how they see it in this kind of like, you know, ongoing production. Some of it's mainstream, your film definitely not, of Israeli memory.
Yeah. So yeah, when I finished the film, and I was wondering if they're gonna screen it on Memorial Day, because it's like on one hand it's a really Memorial Day film, and on the other hand, as we talked about it, it's like it tells a really different narrative than the narrative we're used to hear on Memorial Day. And it's one thing to screen this film on any other day, and it's another thing to watch it on, you know, national television on Memorial Day. So I was surprised that they finally decided to screen it on Memorial Day, and a lot of the critics, you know, on the newspaper talk about it, about the fact that it was the fact, I mean, to see a film like this, a film like that on Memorial Day, it's like super important and you know, eye-opening, and it's really, I mean, it's strange to think about it, because you would have thought that, you know, by now we would see more and more films that would, you know, try and tell a different story, but we didn't, and we haven't, and we're not seeing those kind of films trying to tell a different narrative than the one we're used to see or hear. And I'm really proud of this film, and the fact that people, you know, watch it on Memorial Day. It's a big thing for me, because again, as a kid who grew up in this family, you know, it's nice to see something different, especially you know, dealing with those subjects on that day. It's a big thing, I think.
Thank you, Shaked. I also want to thank Ilona Ben Moshe for, well, first of all, for bringing us together to talk about this. That was so wonderful. And also for organizing this fantastic series, and Daniel Seuss for all his help, and of course, Kristen Ho. I also want to mention quite a few people asked us in the Q&A. Some people missed the link for the film or wanted to have access to the song, to Elifelet, to the poem itself, so the lyrics. Ilona, maybe this is something that you can answer to, but once again, thank you so much for organizing this, and thank you, Shaked.
Thank you, Laliv. Thank you so much. And thank you all for being with us.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Shaked and Laliv, for this fascinating, eye-opening and very personal conversation. It was wonderful. And thank you, our dear audience, for joining us today. Regarding the film, if you missed it, please write us and we'll try to help you find a link for it. Okay. And otherwise, I want to invite you to watch the next film in the series. It's going to be Ida's Secrets over the weekend of May 1st. And please join us for the discussion with the director, Alon Schwartz, on Sunday, May 2nd at the same time. I hope to see you there and have a wonderful afternoon and a good evening wherever you are. Bye.